My name is Bo McCune. I'm giving a speech on performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports. This is my audience.
Morgan,
Phyllis,
Valerie,
Nancy,
Susie,
and Monty.
Baseball is considered America's game. There's nothing better than the feeling of the crisp air while enjoying a hot dog and a cold beer. No matter who you root for, you can't deny the magic felt from experiencing a baseball game. While performance-enhancing drugs have been banned from the league, we are not naive enough to believe that they are completely gone. My goal is to help you understand that they are being used, and that through proper administration, we can cut down on their stigma and finally clear up some of the reputations of the sport's greatest players. While steroid testing has been put in place since the early 2000s, it is foolish to think that players are not still using them. By allowing PEDs in moderation, we could be more realistic about the usage and allow the greats who have been shunned to restore their reputation. Although we are assured that PED testing takes place, we must be realistic in realizing that an astonishing number of players are still using them. Mac Engel of the Star-Telegram reports that an anonymous trainer in the league believes that steroid use has not stopped or declined. After being a trainer for over 10 seasons, he is confident that PEDs are still prevalent. Understanding the risks of performance-enhancing drugs and having a doctor administer them will leave a more honest understanding of the league. Since it is assuming there is a lot of use, this will lead to a better understanding. With the game becoming more fast-paced, pressure to be the best is at an all-time high. Athletes are doing whatever they can to achieve greatness, and with greatness comes an even bigger paycheck. Money plays a big role in driving athletes to perform at a higher level. As the game changes, players feel like the pressure of giving fans what they want. Athletes who are confident that they are not going to make it to the Hall of Fame are not afraid to run the risk of using PEDs. They want to maximize their talent, and the fines are worth getting in trouble for. In 2013, many athletes were involved in the biogenesis scandal, which left multiple players fined and suspended from the game. Nelson Cruz was one of these athletes, and he was suspended for 50 games. After he had done his time, he signed an $8 million contract for 1 year, and after finishing 7th in the MVP race, went on to sign a $57 million deal with the Seattle Mariners. Most people will do whatever it takes to take care of their family. In order to achieve greatness and more money, the risk of getting caught isn't so bad when looking at the long-term benefits. While some disagree with the use of PEDs, they can understand how the pressure to provide and perform would lead someone to use steroids. If I could earn more money after being caught, I wouldn't be afraid of the risks. If I knew that I was facing suspension and a fine, but in the long term it wouldn't hurt my game to be caught, I wouldn't be worried about being caught. After all, since it is assumed that most players use PEDs, the risk of shame and embarrassment would be less of a worry if I knew financial benefit was in my future. After steroids were banned, some of the all-time greats were unable to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds has the statistics to be included, but voters in the Hall of Fame are willing to include him because he is suspected of PED use violations of the character clause. While there is no concrete evidence of his suspected use, he will always be remembered as a great player who unfortunately had his reputation tarnished. By not allowing PED use, we are disregarding the legacy that some players have left just because they were caught, and letting others who weren't found on suspicion of use into the Hall of Fame with untarnished reputations, even though our gut tells us many of them did, in fact, use steroids. Bonds has been on the ballot for the past 5 years, but has not received the 75% required to be inducted. Hall of Famer Frank Thomas believes that Bonds should be included, and that it isn't right that others who have been suspected of use have received the honor. While it is known that a few players who have used PEDs have gotten into the Hall of Fame, he believes Bonds should be allowed in. Tim Raines of the White Sox was inducted into the Hall of Fame, even though it is known that he used cocaine. If players who are known to have used drugs of any kind are allowed in, it is time that we allow Barry Bonds to take his place in the Hall of Fame. While PEDs are not allowed and are looked down upon, many agree that it is not fair to keep the players out of the league because of their suspected use. Frank Thomas does not agree with PED use and thinks that your talent should come naturally. With that being said, he thinks that if you let one athlete who has been known to use PEDs, Bonds and others like him also need the honor of being included. These drugs are not going to be eliminated. They need to be accepted in moderation so fans and players alike can have more honest views of the game. Banning PEDs from the game has not stopped the players from using them, and the tests that are put in place to monitor use, are most likely not an accurate representation of the players and how many are using. In order to be great, players know that they have to use PEDs to become the best versions of themselves. After learning from the mistakes of those that got caught, they are being more evasive in order not to be caught. Players who are able to lay low when it comes to testing time and are even using drugs that are not being tested for. By being sneakier, they are able to get away with using PEDs, and they are able to use a combination of different things that aren't showing up when it's time to take a drug test. Fans are not willing to believe that their favorite player may be using PEDs and aren't naturally great on their own. The league doesn't want to tarnish the players and are unable to completely ban all PED users from the league. If they were accepted, we would have a better and more accurate picture of all players and of the game as well. In conclusion, I believe that PEDs should be used in the game, but they should be used in moderation. If a doctor is the one administering them to the players, they would have a better understanding of what was being used, and the risk of tarnishing their reputation would significantly decrease. Without being able to kick out everyone who uses PEDs from the league, suspension and fines are not enough to get rid of them from the game. By having a professional monitor and administer them, they will be able to make sure people understand the risk that they have on the body and are able to do it in the safest way possible. Knowing that a lot of the members of the league are using PEDs, it is time that we accept them in order to have a better understanding of the players and the game. When PEDs are accepted, the greats who were suspected of use can finally clear their name and be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Thank you.